Millionaire buys baby from unknown pregnant woman, but what happens during delivery? Daniel Moreira looked out the window of his luxurious office, perched atop one of the tallest buildings in Porto Verde, watching the bustling city below. His financial empire was thriving, just as he had always dreamed. However, an invisible weight tormented him. On the surface, he had it all: success, money, prestige. But deep down, he felt a void that bank figures and million-dollar deals couldn't fill. His phone vibrated on the desk. It was a short, straightforward message from his father, Álvaro Moreira, the powerful patriarch of the family. "Dinner at home tonight. Family matter." Daniel sighed. Whenever Álvaro called a family meeting, there was always something important behind it. Álvaro Moreira was a man of imposing presence. In his late 60s, he still maintained the commanding aura of someone who had built an empire from scratch. During his childhood, Daniel always felt that his father was perpetually dissatisfied with him. Lucas, the younger brother, had always been the favorite. Charismatic, extroverted, Lucas had the ability to win everyone over easily, while Daniel, more introverted and work-focused, always struggled to gain his father's approval. At dinner, the tension in the air was palpable. Álvaro, seated at the head of the table, surveyed his sons with the calculating look of someone who had already mapped out his next moves. Lucas, next to his radiant wife Carla, seemed carefree, exchanging smiles and casual conversations. Daniel, on the other hand, was uneasy, trying to anticipate what his father had in mind. Finally, Álvaro cleared his throat and the room fell silent. He took a sip of wine before speaking. "As you know, my health is no longer what it used to be, and like everything in life, there is a time for everything. It's time to think about the future of the Moreira Empire." Daniel felt his heart race. What was coming next? Álvaro continued, "I've decided to change some provisions of the will. I want the future of this family to be in the hands of those who can not only manage the money, but also carry on our name. Therefore, the majority of my legacy will go to the first of my children who has a direct heir." The impact of those words was immediate. Daniel could barely hide his shock. The announcement sounded like a sentence. He knew better than anyone there that he couldn't compete with Lucas in that regard. His secret, which he kept under lock and key, made it impossible for him to participate in this race. Years ago, he had discovered his infertility, something that had shattered any hope of forming a traditional family, and he had never had the courage to reveal it. Lucas, on the other hand, seemed the picture of confidence. With Carla by his side, the path to the inheritance seemed almost guaranteed. Daniel felt a knot form in his throat, a mix of anger, frustration, and despair. What had already promised to be a difficult dinner was becoming unbearable. The air seemed to thin. Álvaro looked directly at Daniel, as if waiting for a reaction. But Daniel couldn't respond immediately. He just nodded, trying to control the emotions boiling inside. Lucas, noticing his brother's discomfort, flashed a discreet, victorious smile. After dinner, Daniel left the family home in silence. He drove through the streets of Porto Verde without a specific destination. His world, which had always seemed controlled and predictable, was now crumbling. He knew his father would never give him the empire if Lucas presented an heir first. His mind raced, searching for a solution to the dilemma consuming him. Could he give it all up? Could he let Lucas be the chosen one without a fight? Fate, however, has always had curious ways of acting. On his way back home, Daniel, still absorbed in his thoughts, spotted something that caught his attention. On a dark corner, a young woman in worn clothes sat on the ground. Her eyes reflected desperation and exhaustion as she held her visibly pregnant belly. Something about the scene made him stop. Daniel parked the car a bit ahead and walked back, intrigued. As he approached, the woman looked up at him, surprised and scared. "Are you okay?" Daniel asked, unsure of what exactly was driving him. The woman hesitated for a moment before answering with a choked voice. "No, but thank you for asking." Daniel stood there for a few moments, observing the young woman. In his mind, an improbable idea began to take shape. The solution to his dilemma was right before his eyes. Back at his luxurious apartment, Daniel felt as if the world were collapsing around him. The lights of Porto Verde sparkled beyond the panoramic windows, but he hardly noticed the view. All that occupied his mind was his father's announcement and the image of the pregnant young woman he had encountered earlier. The pressure to live up to Alvaro's expectations had always been present, but now it felt unbearable. The weight of the will and the impending defeat to Lucas overwhelmed him. Lucas had always been the perfect son in their father's eyes. Married to Carla, the perfect woman for the role of family matriarch, Lucas seemed to have the direct path to the Moreira legacy. Daniel, on the other hand, kept his biggest secret as an invisible wound. Infertility ate away at him inside, a reality that kept him trapped in suffocating silence. He remembered the pain he felt when the doctor diagnosed him years ago. Since then, he had avoided serious relationships, hiding behind the facade of a successful businessman. Deep down, he knew that the life Alvaro demanded of him, a life of heirs and continuity, was impossible. Sitting on the living room sofa, he held a glass of whiskey, trying to drown his frustrations. But alcohol, as always, brought no answers. In his mind, the image of Anna, the pregnant young woman, kept resurfacing. He wondered who she was, what had brought her to that situation, and more disturbingly, why he couldn't stop thinking about her. His father's words echoed again. "The majority of my legacy will go to the first of my children who has a direct heir." It was a clear ultimatum, a race he knew he was destined to lose. Daniel felt the emptiness that had accompanied him for years intensify. Despite all his wealth, he was trapped. Nothing he had achieved seemed to matter when confronted with the harsh reality of his own limitation. This was the essence of his life. Although admired in business, leading with precision and coldness, he had nothing to fill the void in his heart. The silent apartment seemed to amplify his loneliness. The next morning, Daniel went to work as he did every day. His responsibilities as the owner of a bank network kept him busy, but the tension was evident. His employees admired him for his skill, but few knew of the personal burden he carried. In the corporate environment, Daniel wore the mask of the unbeatable businessman, although inside he felt like he was falling apart. As he navigated the day with meetings and important financial decisions, an unusual idea began to take shape. He needed a solution to his crisis, something that would secure his position without revealing his infertility or losing the family empire to Lucas. When the workday ended, Daniel decided to return to the spot where he had found Anna the night before. He needed to see her again, needed to understand why she had awakened something in him that he couldn't explain. When he arrived at the same corner, there she was, sitting on the ground with the same expression of despair. Daniel approached again, this time with a clearer purpose in mind. "Can I sit down?" he asked, looking at the ground beside her. Anna hesitated but nodded. There was tension in the air, a mix of curiosity and fear. She didn't know who this man was, but she sensed that he was there for more than just charity. "My name is Daniel," he began, his voice low, almost hesitant. "And yours?" "Anna," she replied, looking at him warily. For a few moments, both remained silent. Daniel felt that he was about to make a proposal that would change his life forever. He observed Anna's tired face, her hands resting on her swollen belly, and saw in her an opportunity, not just to save himself from Lucas's shadow, but perhaps to find a new purpose for his empty life. "I want to help you, Anna," he finally said, carefully choosing his words. But what I'm going to propose is different. Anna's eyes narrowed, suspicion evident. What kind of help? She asked, her voice almost hoarse. Daniel took a deep breath before continuing. I know you're alone and that you have a child on the way. I can offer you security, a home, money, everything you need, but in return, I need you to agree to something. Anna looked at him, confused. I need you to pretend that this baby is mine, that you are my wife in the eyes of others. Anna stared at him in disbelief. The proposal seemed as absurd as it was real. A heavy silence filled the air as she processed what she had just heard. At that moment, Daniel knew that his life was about to change drastically and that Anna's choice could decide not only his future, but the fate of the entire Moreira empire. Anna couldn't immediately respond. What this man was proposing seemed impossible, almost surreal. Daniel, sensing the shock in her eyes, waited patiently, even as he felt the weight of expectation building. It was a high-stakes gamble, and he knew it. But it was his only chance. Anna lowered her gaze to her belly, her thoughts racing. The baby growing inside her needed security, something she couldn't provide. Since being abandoned by the child's father, her life had become a constant struggle for survival. The future seemed like an uncertain road, with her and her child at the mercy of fate. Are you serious? Anna finally asked, her voice still hesitant, almost trembling. Daniel nodded. I understand it's an unusual request, and I don't expect you to trust me right away, but believe me, this could be a solution for both of us. Anna was still stunned. She tried to process Daniel's offer, searching for any sign that this was some kind of trap. But what could he gain from this? What was behind the seemingly generous proposal? What do you want in return? She asked, trying to understand his intentions better. Daniel took a deep breath, knowing he needed to be transparent. My father made an announcement recently. He said that the first of my brothers to have a direct heir would inherit the majority of the family's fortune. The problem is that He hesitated, feeling the weight of the truth he rarely admitted. I can't have children. Anna watched him in silence, beginning to understand. Infertility was something she would never have imagined as the secret of this seemingly confident man. He was desperate, just like her. The difference was that he had money, power, and a comfortable life, while she lived in uncertainty, struggling for every meal. I want to assume the paternity of your baby. We can pretend to be a couple. You and your child will have everything you need, and I can maintain my position in the family. It will be a fair trade, Daniel finished, waiting for her reaction. Anna didn't respond immediately. Her mind raced with the implications of the offer. As absurd as it seemed, there was a practical sense to it. She had no one, and the idea of raising her child alone on the streets terrified her. Hunger, cold, insecurity, all of that could end. She would have a home, stability, and her child would have a future. Still, the deal was risky. She didn't know Daniel, and trusting him would mean giving up any control over her own life. But what were the alternatives? Continuing on the streets, alone and without resources. And if I accept? She asked slowly. How would this work? Daniel felt a sense of relief as he realized she was considering the proposal. We would move into an apartment that I will provide. In the eyes of everyone, we would be a couple. You would be introduced to my family, and I would ensure that all your needs are met. When the baby is born, we will claim that he is my child, and we will raise him together. You would have security, a comfortable life. But of course, this would just be an agreement. I don't need anything else from you beyond that, he said, trying to make it clear that there were no hidden intentions beyond the plan. Anna thought for a few more seconds, feeling the weight of her decision. It wasn't an easy choice, but it seemed to be the only one that could ensure her child had a chance in life. "And can I trust that you will keep your word?" she asked, still with reservations. "Yes," Daniel replied firmly. "I have a lot to lose if this goes wrong, and just as much to gain if it works. You will have my word, and more than that, my commitment to your child's future." She took a deep breath, realizing that, at that moment, this was her best and only option. "Then, I accept," Anna said, feeling the enormity of her decision. Daniel allowed himself a small but genuine smile. It was an agreement, a silent pact between two strangers now bound by a common goal, each with their own reasons. "Let's make this work," he said with a determined tone. That night, Daniel arranged for Anna to be taken to a comfortable hotel where she could rest and recover from the exhaustion of living on the streets. While she slept, he stayed awake, reflecting on what had just happened. There was a lightness in his mind now that he had a plan, but at the same time, something new was beginning to stir within him. Anna was not just a tool for him to achieve his goals. Somehow, her presence and the baby had brought something he couldn't explain, a feeling that was slowly, almost imperceptibly, awakening, something he believed he would never feel. As he looked out at the city's lights once more, Daniel knew he was embarking on an uncertain journey, and at that moment, he couldn't foresee the consequences of this unlikely agreement. The living room clock read just after 8 in the evening when Daniel entered his home, feeling the weight of the changes to come. The agreement with Anna was already in motion, and the next step would be to introduce her to the family. The plan he had devised to secure his position in the Moreira Empire was now coming to fruition, but as the days passed, the reality of the situation began to seem more complex than he had anticipated. Anna, though still hesitant, had moved into one of the apartments Daniel provided in a wealthy area of Porto Verde. The place was discreet and comfortable, perfect for her to live in peace until the story was presented to the rest of the family. With each visit he made, Daniel noticed how much Anna was adjusting to this new life, but he also saw in her eyes the same uncertainty that he carried. They both knew they were just beginning a delicate game where any mistake could be fatal. The first major test of this agreement came quickly, Álvaro Moreira's birthday. Every year the date was marked by a grand party full of influential guests and members of Porto Verde's high society. For Daniel, this would be the moment to introduce Anna to the family and solidify the lie they had built together. On the afternoon of the party, Daniel went to pick up Anna from the apartment. She was nervous, fidgeting with the edges of the elegant dress he had sent her to buy. When he entered, he could see the discomfort etched on her face. "Are you okay?" he asked, trying to appear more confident than he felt. Anna looked at him, biting her lower lip before replying, "I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can pretend in front of so many people." Daniel took a deep breath and approached, feeling the responsibility to calm her down. "I understand how you feel, but I'll be by your side the entire time. You just need to be yourself. The rest we'll figure out along the way." She nodded, although the uncertainty was still there. Daniel offered his arm, and together they left for the Moreira family home. When they arrived at the mansion, the place was already filled with luxury cars, and the hum of conversations could be heard from afar. Daniel felt a chill down his spine as he realized that this was the moment when his plan would begin to unfold. He and Anna entered, and all eyes immediately turned to the couple. Everyone seemed surprised to see Daniel accompanied by a pregnant woman, something completely out of character for his usually reserved behavior. Lucas and Carla were the first to approach, with smiles that masked sharp curiosity. "Daniel, what a surprise," said Lucas, raising his eyebrows. "And you brought a new addition?" Carla, always elegant and warm, smiled at Anna in a kind but clearly intrigued manner. "This is Anna," said Daniel, maintaining a firm tone as if this were the most natural of scenarios. "My fiancée." The words seemed to hang in the air, shocking both Lucas and Carla. Anna, for her part, tried to smile and remain as natural as possible, though she knew all eyes in the room were on her. "Your fiancé?" Lucas repeated with a surprised laugh. "You never told us you were engaged, brother." "It happened unexpectedly," Daniel replied without going into much detail. "But now we're together, and we're expecting our first child." Lucas looked at Anna's belly with veiled suspicion, while Carla stepped forward, gently touching Anna's arm. "Congratulations," Carla said with a smile. "You must be very happy, Daniel. I never imagined you would be getting married." Their father, Alvaro, was watching from a distance, his calculating eyes assessing the situation. He approached the group with a restrained air. "Anna, isn't it?" he asked with a formal but distant smile. "Welcome to our family." Anna felt the weight of the patriarch's gaze but remained firm, politely thanking him. The night continued with the guests murmuring about the unexpected announcement. Daniel noticed that Lucas was watching everything with more intensity than usual. He knew his brother didn't buy the story immediately, and that soon he would start asking questions. However, there was something in Alvaro that made him more at ease. His father didn't seem to suspect anything. For Alvaro, the important thing was the continuity of the family name, and Daniel knew that, at least for now, he had gotten what he wanted. At the end of the party, Daniel and Anna left discreetly. On the way back, Anna exhaled a mixture of relief and exhaustion. She knew the first big test had been passed, but what would come next could be even more challenging. "That was," Anna began, searching for the words. "Intense?" Daniel completed with a slight smile. "Yes, but I think it went well, at least for now." "You were amazing," he said, surprising himself as he realized he meant it sincerely. Anna smiled, but her gaze was still distant. They both knew that was just the beginning of the facade they had created, and to sustain the lie, they would have to trust each other, something they hadn't done fully until then. The days following the patriarch's party brought an apparent calm, but Daniel knew that beneath the surface something was in motion. Lucas's suspicious look during the dinner still haunted him, and he knew his brother wouldn't sit still in the face of the unexpected announcement of his paternity. Lucas had always been astute, and Daniel was well aware of his competitive instinct. It wouldn't be long before Lucas started digging for answers. However, Daniel was also on alert. He knew his brother well enough to anticipate that Lucas wouldn't accept the story easily. With each passing day, he prepared for the inevitable confrontation. Still, a new concern was beginning to arise. Despite all the deceit they were involved in, Daniel was starting to grow attached to Anna and the baby she was carrying. The idea that he could, in fact, become the father of that child, even if not biologically, was beginning to take root in his mind. One day, Lucas unexpectedly showed up at Daniel's office. He walked in without knocking, as he always did, carrying the arrogant air of someone about to confront his rival. "I've been thinking a lot about this story with Anna," Lucas said, without mincing words, as he sat in front of his brother's desk. "Don't take it the wrong way, Daniel, but this whole turnaround seems rushed." Daniel remained calm, but he knew Lucas was trying to destabilize him. "And why does it bother you so much, Lucas?" he asked, not looking up from the papers in front of him. "Since when is my relationship any of your business?" "It's not that." Lucas gave a half smile, clearly enjoying the opportunity to provoke. "It's just that you never mentioned Anna. You never told us anything about her before she showed up pregnant at Dad's birthday party. It seems convenient, don't you think?" Daniel felt his stomach turn, but he kept his expression neutral. He knew Lucas was playing, trying to extract information. "I don't have to explain anything about my personal life to you," Daniel replied, looking directly at him. "What I do or don't do with Anna is our business, not yours." Lucas gave a dry laugh. "Oh, brother, I just want to make sure you're being honest with the family. After all, we're talking about the Moreira legacy, aren't we? I think we all have the right to know if there's something more to this story." "And what exactly do you think is going on?" Daniel finally asked, meeting his brother's gaze. Lucas leaned back in the chair, his face more serious now. "I think you're hiding something. Maybe Anna isn't who she says she is. Maybe this whole paternity thing isn't exactly what it seems." The tension between the two was palpable. Daniel knew he couldn't show weakness at that moment. "I don't know what you think you're going to achieve with this suspicion, Lucas, but let me warn you of one thing," Daniel said firmly, standing up from his chair. "Anna is with me. The baby is mine. And no matter what you think or discover, nothing will change that." Lucas observed him in silence for a few seconds, measuring his brother's words. Then, with a cold smile, he stood up as well. "We'll see," he said, leaving the office without saying anything else. Daniel sat back down, feeling his heart pounding in his chest. Lucas was clearly on the hunt, and he knew his brother wouldn't stop until he uncovered the truth. Time was running out. That night he went to Anna's apartment. When he arrived, he found her sitting on the couch, lost in thought. When he entered, she looked at him with concern. "Lucas came to see me today," Daniel said without preamble. "He's suspicious. He started investigating your life." Anna's eyes widened, and a wave of fear washed over her. "And if he finds out?" she asked, her voice filled with uncertainty. Daniel sat beside her and took her hand, a gesture that surprised him as much as it did her. "He won't find out anything if we're careful. But we need to be prepared. Lucas is smart. He won't stop until he finds something. From now on, we have to be more cautious than ever." Anna nodded, but the anxiety was evident. They were in a delicate situation, and any mistake could destroy what they had built so far. For Daniel, however, a new thought was emerging. How far was he willing to go to maintain this lie? And more importantly, what was this deception starting to awaken in him? The atmosphere in the Moreira household was heavy with tension. The days after the conversation with Lucas became increasingly difficult for Daniel and Anna. They were constantly on alert, always waiting for Lucas's next move. Daniel knew his brother wouldn't give up so easily, but he wasn't prepared for what came next. That afternoon, Alvaro Moreira called everyone for a family lunch. The patriarch of the family rarely made informal invitations, and Daniel knew this wouldn't be just a social gathering. He braced himself for the worst. When he arrived at the mansion, he and Anna were greeted by Lucas and Carla, who were already there. Lucas's smile this time was one of pure satisfaction. Alvaro was waiting in the dining room, his gaze serious. When everyone was seated, the patriarch made a discreet signal, and Lucas wasted no time in taking the floor. "Father, I think it's time we had an honest conversation about something that's been bothering me." Lucas looked at Daniel with a gleam of challenge in his eyes. There are some issues regarding Daniel and Anna that aren't clear. Daniel felt the blood boil. He knew Lucas had set up an ambush. "And what exactly do you mean by that?" Daniel asked, trying to stay calm. Lucas crossed his arms, clearly savoring the moment. "I've done some digging into Anna's background, just to make sure we're all being transparent with each other. And curiously, I found out that she has absolutely no past connection to you, Daniel. No record of a relationship, nothing. It's as if she simply appeared out of nowhere. Pregnant." Anna shifted uncomfortably in her seat, feeling the weight of Lucas's words. Daniel glanced at her quickly, trying to convey confidence, but he knew things were far from under control. "Lucas, you have no right to meddle in my life like this." Daniel responded firmly. "Anna and I are a couple, and that's all that matters. You have no right to question our relationship." Lucas let out a short laugh, looking at Alvaro as if waiting for a reaction. "Father, I believe we have the right to know if something is being hidden here." Daniel suddenly showed up with a pregnant fiancée without any explanation. Their story doesn't add up. "I'm just trying to protect our family and make sure we're not being deceived." The silence that followed was heavy. Daniel knew this was a critical moment. If Alvaro sided with Lucas, his entire plan could fall apart. But to his surprise, his father remained calm. "Lucas," Alvaro said in his deep voice, "I understand your concern, and I appreciate that you want to protect the family's interests. But the issue here isn't what you've discovered or what you think you know about Anna. What's important is that Daniel is taking responsibility for this child. And to me, that's enough." Daniel's heart leapt. Alvaro, unknowingly, had just given him a lifeline he never expected. Lucas, on the other hand, seemed stunned by his father's response. "But, Father, what if all of this is a lie?" Lucas persisted. "What if Daniel is just pretending to secure the inheritance?" Alvaro cut him off with a hard look. "I've made my decision, Lucas. What matters to me is not blood, but who is willing to care for this child. If Daniel is willing to be the father, that's what matters to me." Lucas fell silent, clearly frustrated. He had placed all his bets on that confrontation, and Alvaro's unexpected support for Daniel had poured cold water on his plans. Anna, who had remained silent until then, finally spoke. "I understand that all of this is hard to believe," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But what Daniel and I have is real. I only want the best for my child, and I know that with Daniel, he will have that." Alvaro nodded, as if that was the final point in the conversation. He looked at Lucas with a silent warning, and Lucas, realizing he had lost that battle, simply got up from the table. "I just wanted to make sure we weren't making a mistake," he said, before leaving the room with Carla by his side. The silence that followed was uncomfortable, but for Daniel, there was a sense of relief. He had overcome the first major obstacle, and surprisingly, he had received the support he least expected. After the lunch ended, Daniel and Anna left together. In the car, the tension finally seemed to lift. Anna looked at him, relieved, but still scared by everything that had happened. "Do you think he'll stop?" she asked, referring to Lucas. Daniel sighed, unsure. "I don't know. But the important thing is that we have my father's support. Lucas won't be able to do anything as long as Alvaro is on our side." Anna nodded, though she knew the situation was far from resolved. She felt that, with each passing day, the bond between her and Daniel was becoming more complicated, not just because of the facade they were maintaining, but also because of the conflicting feelings that were beginning to emerge. As the car moved through the streets of Porto Verde, Daniel realized that, despite everything he had done to secure his place in the family empire, he was becoming attached to the idea of truly being the father of that baby. And perhaps, for the first time in a long time, he was beginning to see a future that didn't involve just business and succession. The days following the confrontation with Lucas were a temporary relief for Daniel and Anna. Alvaro continued to support the couple, and Lucas's pressure had subsided. However, Daniel knew his brother wouldn't give up so easily. Lucas would never accept that defeat. He was probably plotting his next move in silence, waiting for the right moment to strike again. At Anna's apartment, Daniel's visits became more frequent. The environment, once cold and impersonal, was beginning to take on a more familiar feel. Slowly, Daniel and Anna adjusted to the routine of pretending to be in a relationship, but something else was starting to develop between them. Every gesture, every exchange of looks carried a new emotional weight, something neither of them was ready to admit. Anna, for her part, struggled with her own feelings. The agreement with Daniel had started as a way to ensure security for herself and her child. But over time, she began to see in Daniel much more than just the cold businessman he appeared to be. She saw a man who, though he had his own interests at play, was transforming in the face of impending fatherhood. One afternoon, while they were having tea in the living room, Anna decided it was time to address an issue that had begun to trouble her. "Daniel," she began, her voice hesitant, "have you ever wondered what will happen after the baby is born?" Daniel, who had been distracted with work documents on his laptop, looked at her, surprised by the question. "What do you mean?" Anna sighed, running her hand over her already quite pronounced belly. "I know we made this agreement to ensure you could keep your position in the family, but I'm starting to think about the future. What happens after? After the baby is born, how will this work for us?" Daniel remained silent for a moment, pondering the question. Up until that point, he had only thought about the present, about how to ensure the plan worked until everything was resolved. But Anna was right. What would come after? "I don't know," he finally replied. "But one thing I do know, I want to be present. I want to take care of this child, Anna. I know that at the beginning, this was just an agreement, but things have changed for me. I want to be the father of your child, not just to keep my position in the family, but because I feel it's the right thing to do. I want to be here for him." Anna was surprised by the sincerity in Daniel's words. He was indeed changing. The man who once seemed cold and calculating was now speaking with an emotion she hadn't expected. "But what if Lucas keeps trying to expose us?" she asked, still worried. Daniel shook his head. "Lucas can try all he wants. What matters is that we have my father's support. He made it clear that he doesn't care about blood, but about who is willing to care for and love this child. As long as we're together, Lucas can't hurt us." Anna nodded, but the doubt still lingered. Although she felt she was getting closer to Daniel, there was something inside her that kept her cautious. She knew that much was still at stake, and the lie that underpinned their relationship continued to hang over them. Later that day, as Daniel was preparing to leave, he received an unexpected call. It was Alvaro asking to see him immediately. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. The tone in his father's voice was serious, and he knew this wouldn't be just a casual conversation. When he arrived at the Moreira mansion, Alvaro was in the office, his gaze lost in a set of papers spread across the desk. When Daniel entered, he gestured for him to sit down. "We need to talk about Lucas," Alvaro said without preamble. Daniel tensed. He knew his brother's name always brought trouble. "What did he do now?" Daniel asked, trying to stay calm. "He won't give up," Alvaro replied, shaking his head. "Lucas confronted me again about you and Anna. He brought more evidence that Anna has no connection to your past, that she appeared out of nowhere. He's obsessed with proving that this child isn't yours." Daniel felt the blood rush to his head. The anger he had repressed for weeks began to bubble up. "And you? What do you think of this, father?" Alvaro remained silent for a few moments, looking directly at his son. Then, with a deep sigh, he said, "Lucas is right about one thing. This story has flaws, Daniel, and I'm not blind to that. But what really matters, what has always mattered to me, is who is willing to protect this family, to ensure that the legacy I built is carried on with honor. And so far, you've shown me that you're willing to do that." Daniel looked at his father, feeling a mix of relief and confusion. Alvaro didn't seem concerned with the technical details of the lie. To him, what mattered was Daniel's commitment to the future. "I need you to stay strong, Daniel," Alvaro continued. Lucas is trying to take you down, but you've already proven you're the most suitable to lead this family. I'm not going to let him destroy that. His father's words sounded like a blessing. For the first time in his life, Daniel felt he had earned Alvaro's respect, not for his business skills, but for something greater, something that involved the future of everyone. As he left the mansion, Daniel reflected on everything that had happened. The plan that had begun with selfish intentions was transforming into something much deeper. He had not only gained his father's support, but he was also beginning to understand the true meaning of family. And for the first time, he wondered if, in the end, this agreement had been the best path to finding what he had always sought, a purpose beyond money and power. The change in Daniel was visible. In the weeks following the conversation with his father, he realized that something profound was changing within him. For the first time in his life, it wasn't the financial empire, power, or status that drove him. It was the desire to be a father, to protect Anna and the baby who was about to be born, and unexpectedly, he was beginning to feel something more for Anna, something that went beyond the simple agreement that had brought them together. Anna, too, noticed the changes. Daniel, the man who once seemed distant and cold, now showed an unexpected care. He became involved in everyday decisions, from decorating the baby's room to attending medical appointments. His presence was constant, and Anna couldn't deny that it touched her in a way she hadn't anticipated. However, uncertainty still surrounded her. Even with Alvaro's support, there was always the shadow of Lucas lurking. She knew he wouldn't give up easily, and with the baby's birth approaching, the pressure on them grew. One day, Daniel took Anna to a routine medical appointment. On the way back, while driving through the sunny streets of Porto Verde, he looked at Anna and noticed how worried she was. The past few months had been intense, and he knew the weight of the agreement was taking its toll on her. "Are you okay?" he asked, breaking the silence. Anna sighed, looking out the car window before answering. "I think so. I'm just tired of all this. Pretending in front of your family, carrying this lie. I know it's what we agreed on, but sometimes it's hard. I feel like I'm sinking into something I don't know how it will end." Daniel remained silent for a moment, considering her words. He knew Anna was right. The facade they had built was becoming heavier, and the baby's birth would bring even more challenges. But more than ever, he was determined to make it work, not just for the family empire, but because somehow the situation had transformed him. "I know it hasn't been easy for you," he said, glancing at the road. "But I want you to know that regardless of how this started, I'm here. I'm not doing this for the will anymore. It's not about an agreement now, Anna. I want to be part of your life and the baby's life. I'm not pretending anymore." Anna was surprised by Daniel's sincerity. She looked at him more closely, realizing that his words came from a genuine place. Something inside her warmed at hearing him say that. But at the same time, a persistent fear remained. It was hard to trust completely after everything they had been through. "It's hard to believe that," she said softly, "because everything started as a lie." "I know," he replied, his voice firm. "And that was a mistake. But I've changed, Anna. This baby, he's changed everything for me. I can't undo what we've done, but I can move forward being honest with you. I don't want this to just be an agreement anymore. I want us to be a real family." The silence that followed was heavy. Anna felt a wave of conflicting emotions. Part of her wanted to believe Daniel, wanted to give in to the idea that this man could be different, but another part, more rational, still fought to protect herself. After all, it had all started as a facade. Was it safe to trust him now? Before she could respond, Daniel's phone rang. He quickly looked at the screen and frowned. It was a message from Lucas. "We need to talk. I know what you're hiding." Daniel's heart raced. Lucas hadn't given up as he had feared, and now it seemed that his brother had some kind of ace up his sleeve. "It's Lucas," Daniel said, showing Anna the message. "He knows something, or at least he thinks he does." Anna looked at the phone, feeling the same wave of apprehension. Lucas remained the biggest obstacle between them and the future they were trying to build. He was obsessed with exposing Daniel, and it wouldn't end until he got what he wanted. "What are we going to do?" Anna asked, her voice filled with worry. Daniel remained silent for a few moments, thinking about his options. He knew Lucas was trying to provoke him, forcing an impulsive response. But this time, Daniel wouldn't let his brother win. "We're going to keep going," he finally said, determined. "No matter what he thinks he knows, what we have now is real, and I'm going to fight for it. Lucas won't tear us apart." Anna nodded, but the tension didn't leave her. They both knew that although they had Alvaro's support, Lucas was a force that couldn't be underestimated. And with the baby's birth approaching, the truth was inching closer to coming to light. In the days that followed, Daniel prepared for the inevitable confrontation with Lucas. He knew his brother wouldn't rest until he uncovered the truth. But on the other hand, Daniel felt stronger than ever. What had started as a desperate plan to maintain control of the family empire was now turning into something much more. And for the first time, Daniel felt ready to face whatever came, because now he had something he never thought he'd have, a family, and he was willing to fight for it, no matter the consequences. The following days passed like the calm before a storm. Lucas kept his distance, which only heightened Daniel's suspicion. He knew his brother was planning something, but he wasn't sure when or how the attack would come. Still, at that moment, Daniel's focus was on Anna and the baby. The birth was near, and all he wanted was to ensure they were well. Anna, on the other hand, was becoming increasingly anxious. Although she had gotten used to the new routine alongside Daniel, the weight of everything happening around them weighed heavily on her. All the while, she wondered what would happen once the baby was born. Would Lucas attack them again? Would Daniel stay by her side, or would he revert to his old ways of putting the family's interests above all else? The answer to some of these questions would come sooner than expected. It was a quiet afternoon when Anna began to feel the first contractions. At first, she thought they were just the usual discomforts of pregnancy, but as time passed, the pains intensified. Daniel was with her in the apartment, going over some work documents, when he noticed the change in Anna's expression. "Are you all right?" he asked, noticing her growing discomfort. Anna took a deep breath, trying to hide it, but the pain became impossible to ignore. "I think the baby is coming," she said, her voice trembling. Daniel felt his heart race, the moment he had been waiting for, but also filled him with anxiety, had finally arrived. He dropped everything he was doing and quickly helped Anna to her feet. "I'm taking you to the hospital now," he said, already grabbing the car keys. On the way to the hospital, Daniel's nerves grew with each passing minute. Although he had prepared for this moment, the reality was much more intense than he had imagined. He glanced at Anna, who was now breathing heavily, trying to manage the pain of the contractions, and everything inside him seemed to shift. The importance of business, the family empire, Lucas and his attempts to take him down. Everything seemed smaller in comparison to what was about to happen. When they arrived at the hospital, Anna was immediately taken to the delivery room. Daniel stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand as the doctors prepared. He had never felt so helpless in his life. Seeing Anna in the throes of labor and knowing that all he could do was offer support made him realize how much she had come to mean to him. The hours that followed were exhausting, both physically and emotionally. The atmosphere in the delivery room was frantic, and Daniel, who had always been used to having control over everything, now depended entirely on the doctor's skills and Anna's strength. Finally, after hours of tension, the cry of a baby filled the room. Daniel felt his breath catch for a moment, as if the whole world had stopped. A mixture of relief, joy, and emotion washed over him as he watched the tiny being in the nurse's arms. The doctor approached with the baby wrapped in a blanket and handed him to Daniel. For the first time, he held the child who, in a way, had changed everything in his life. "Here he is," the doctor said, smiling. "Congratulations, Dad." Daniel looked at the small, sleeping face in his arms and felt something inside him that he had never thought possible. The baby's weight seemed light, but the significance of the moment was immeasurable. He knew at that instant that no matter the biological truth, this baby was his child, and he would do everything to protect and care for him. Anna, still exhausted, smiled when she saw Daniel holding the baby so carefully. "You did it, Anna," he said softly, moving closer so she could see the baby. "He's beautiful." Anna, with tears in her eyes, touched the baby's little face and looked at Daniel with gratitude. Everything they had gone through up to that moment, all the lies and uncertainties, seemed to dissipate in the face of the new life they now shared. But the relief and joy were short-lived. While Daniel was still absorbed in the moment of happiness with Anna and the baby, his phone vibrated in his pocket. He ignored it at first, but the persistence made him check the screen. It was a message from Lucas. "Congratulations on the baby, but don't think this story is over. I'm on my way." Daniel's heart raced again, this time for a very different reason. Lucas was coming, and he knew his brother wasn't coming for a friendly visit. Lucas had likely discovered something that could expose them once and for all. "What is it?" Anna asked, noticing the dark expression on Daniel's face. He looked at her, still holding the baby, and for a moment, all he wanted was to protect the new family he was building. "Lucas is coming," he replied, his voice tense. "He's going to try to end everything." Anna closed her eyes, trying to brace herself for what was coming next. The moment of peace they had just experienced seemed about to collapse. Daniel knew he would have to face Lucas one last time. And this time, he wasn't just fighting for an inheritance or an empire. He was fighting for his family. And no matter what his brother brought with him, he was ready to do whatever it took. The atmosphere at the hospital was heavy when Daniel learned that Lucas was on his way. He knew his brother was determined to expose him, but now, more than ever, he had something to protect. As he held the baby in his arms, he felt the weight of responsibility and the love that had enveloped him over the past few months. Anna, exhausted after the delivery, looked at him with apprehension. "What is he going to do?" Anna asked, her voice weak but filled with concern. Daniel took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. He didn't know exactly what Lucas had discovered, but he was sure his brother would try to destroy everything they had built. "I don't know what he's going to bring," Daniel replied, his eyes fixed on the baby. "But I know I won't let him tear us apart. I'm here for you and for our son. No matter what happens, I'll fight for this." The baby, calm and defenseless, seemed to be the anchor keeping Daniel grounded in the face of the impending chaos. He knew that this moment of peace was fragile, and soon he would have to confront Lucas head-on. Minutes later, the sound of quick footsteps echoed down the hospital corridor. Lucas appeared, his face set with determination. As he entered the room, his expression was one of pure triumph, as if he had finally won the battle he had been waging against his brother. "Congratulations on the baby, Daniel," Lucas said with an ironic smile, his eyes gleaming with malice. "But I think it's time to end this farce." Anna, now sitting on the bed, looked at Lucas with fear. Daniel felt a surge of anger, but he kept his composure. He knew he needed to face this wisely. "Lucas, you have no right to be here," Daniel said, his voice firm but controlled. "This is my family. I'm not going to let you destroy it." Lucas gave a short laugh and threw an envelope onto the table next to the bed. "Your family?" Lucas mocked. Daniel, you're not fooling anyone. I went digging for answers and found the truth. This baby isn't yours, and Anna never had any connection to your life until a few months ago. This whole thing was a setup to secure the inheritance, and I have proof of it. Anna swallowed hard, feeling panic rise through her body. Daniel looked at the envelope containing Lucas's proofs, but he remained unfazed. He knew that this truth, now exposed, was a risk he had been running from the beginning. But as he looked at Anna and the baby, he knew his fight was now for something much greater than money or power. "Yes, Lucas," Daniel said calmly. "I'm not the biological father of this baby, and Anna came into my life unexpectedly. But what you don't understand, and never will, is that fatherhood isn't just about blood. It's about love, about care, about being present." Lucas looked at him, confused, as if he couldn't grasp his brother's words. "When I met Anna," Daniel continued, "I was desperate, yes. I wanted to secure my position in the family, in the empire. But over these months, everything has changed. I've changed, and no matter what you discover or say, this baby is my child because I chose to be here. I chose to be a father." The silence that followed was thick. Anna looked at Daniel, tears in her eyes, touched by the sincere words he had just spoken. Lucas, on the other hand, seemed unable to process what he had just heard. This doesn't make sense," Lucas muttered, shaking his head. "You've always been cold, Daniel. You've always put business first. Now you want me to believe you've become Father of the Year." Daniel approached Lucas, his gaze firm. "Maybe I was like that in the past, but that has changed. The family empire can go on, Lucas, but it doesn't mean the same thing to me anymore. What really matters now is what I feel for Anna and for this baby. And if you can't understand that, then you're the one who's losing." Lucas, speechless, looked from Daniel to Anna and then to the baby. The hardness in his eyes began to waver. For the first time, he seemed to realize what was truly at stake. His obsession with the inheritance had blinded him to what really mattered. Then, unexpectedly, Lucas took a step back, his face tired and resigned. Maybe I got lost in all of this," he said, his voice lower. "Maybe I let the inheritance blind me to what really matters." Anna, still emotional, watched the scene with a mixture of relief and surprise. Lucas, Daniel's eternal rival, seemed to be finally recognizing his own mistakes. "I'm sorry, Daniel," Lucas said at last. "I was wrong." Daniel, feeling the weight of the tension lift, nodded. He knew that moment was more than just a simple victory. It was the end of a rivalry that had consumed both of them for so long. Lucas left the room, leaving Daniel, Anna, and the baby in peace. Daniel looked at Anna, still feeling the intensity of everything that had happened. "I think we can finally start," he said, with a slight smile. Anna smiled back, her eyes full of hope. What had started as a facade, a desperate plan to secure a legacy, had turned into something much more valuable. Daniel now had what he had always been searching for, even without knowing it: a true family. And for the first time, he felt that the Millionaire Empire was not the most important legacy he could leave. The love, compassion, and commitment he had learned alongside Anna and the baby were the true legacy he wanted to carry. And so ends the emotional journey of Daniel, Anna, and the baby, where what began as a charade to protect a legacy turned into a true lesson of love, family, and transformation. But what do you think? Would Daniel have made the same decision without Alvaro's support? Leave your opinions in the comments. I'm eager to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this story full of twists and emotional moments, don't forget to like and share it with your friends. It helps us a lot to keep bringing more content like this to you. And of course, if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos and incredible stories we're preparing. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.